Today, as you watch this time-lapse, I wanted to talk about burnout for a bit. It's my first digital drawing/painting, so don't be too harsh on it, please. I may mention some potentially triggering things, so if that's an issue, feel free to skip this video and watch or do something else. Creating this artwork actually ties into what I wanted to talk about, because my interest in art is part of a larger journey of finding what truly matters to me and discovering what I really want to do with my life. And the big catalyst for this journey was the burnout I experienced at my last job. My job basically involved managing people, and my success depended on other people's work, which was slowly wearing me down inside, causing me intense anxiety. Without going into too much detail, it was largely due to a poorly designed system. The people I managed were freelancers with no real obligations or oversight, so everything was built on trust, which is not the best business model, as you might imagine. But there was really nothing I could do about it. As you might guess, people would frequently fail to deliver, straight up lie, or just disappear, making it extremely stressful. I was constantly expecting something to go wrong. It's worth mentioning that most of the time my anxiety and doubts were unfounded. But there were still plenty of times when they were justified, which only reinforced my anxious feelings, keeping me constantly on edge, waiting for the next problem. It didn't help that it was the kind of job where I had to be available almost all the time. Even on holidays or in my free time, I had to check on projects to make sure everything is okay. At first it felt perfectly manageable and I thought I could do it without a problem, but over time it started to pile up. Eventually I found myself dreading mornings. I'd stay up late, watching something on my phone or just avoiding sleep because going to sleep meant waking up to another day of work. At the time, I didn't consciously understand why I was staying up late or why it felt so impossible to wake up in the morning. It was more of a subconscious response. I found myself increasingly wishing I were a robot, something that could just be plugged in or out when needed. It would have made things so much easier. I was almost one anyway. This led to sleep deprivation, and I began feeling like a zombie, just going through the motions every day. And it was gradual, and I didn't really feel anything specific about it. It's worth mentioning that I'm pretty sure I have Alexithymia, which may have contributed to my overall experience. And for me, it manifests as generally low emotional awareness. I don't always register how I'm feeling in the moment, but later, when I reflect on my behavior, when I analyze it, I can tell that I must have felt a certain way. I skip over subtle emotions and only become aware of feelings when they're intense. It's like cup slowly overfills and then suddenly I'm like, oh crap, something's not right. And when people ask how I'm feeling, I usually say fine, because I don't feel anything specific most of the time, and I'm just in a neutral sort of state. It's like there's this baseline that doesn't change much, at least until something crosses the threshold. Also, for the longest time, I couldn't understand the concept of mood. I thought people were exaggerating or lying when they'd say they felt something different every day. I could only understand mood in terms of style, like the mood of a place, which made sense to me. And obviously, if there is not much to feel, there is not much to express. That was always a struggle. When people asked me to describe my impressions, I'd just give objective details or recount events, which probably came across as flat. They seemed disappointed by how I described my experiences, and at the time I couldn't understand why. At one point, I started noticing the rooftops on my way to work, wondering which one would be highest to jump from. I began mentally adding it as a task on my to-do list for the day, thinking, I'll finish this, then go to the rooftop and jump. Or, oh, another project came up, so I'll do that first and then go. It didn't register as alarming or weird, just another mundane task. Then I realized I couldn't remember what it felt like to be excited about anything, whether it was my favorite music, a new game, or a TV series. Somewhere around that time, something shifted. It was like something surfaced. The proverbial cup overflowed, and I suddenly realized that something was deeply wrong. Deciding to quit was a massive relief, although it was scary because I didn't have a good backup plan for income. I didn't want another office job or anything like what I'd been doing. Fortunately, I still had my degree and a profession I genuinely enjoyed, but hadn't fully engaged with yet. So I figured I'd find a way. What mattered most was ending this, whatever it was that I couldn't quite name at the time, because I finally became aware that something really twisted was going on with me. Looking back now, I'm pretty sure I was experiencing depression, though I couldn't identify it at the time. I've noticed this pattern in myself, only understanding my emotions in hindsight. Learning about Alexithymia later helped me make sense of a lot of these patterns. I was also able to put a name to the experience, because at the time I wasn't aware of what I was going through or whether it even needed a specific label. And from there, things began to improve. I couldn't quit immediately and had to stay for another 3 months or so, but even the thought of leaving gave me a huge sense of relief. I started to enjoy things again, which felt strange at first. It made me realize how numb I had become to enjoyment, how excitement had been drained from my life without me even noticing, and I had forgotten it even existed. After I finally left, it took about a year or so to feel like my old self again. And it was only then that I could fully see how dark that place had been. I really started trying to dissect and better understand myself. Although I've always been interested in psychology, real growth began after that experience. Then the war happened, which affected things in its own way, but that's probably a conversation for another time. I guess the biggest takeaway is don't stay in shitty jobs and try to listen to yourself and understand yourself better. It can get dark really quickly otherwise. Easier said than done, right? But honestly, educating yourself, introspecting and challenging yourself to understand why you do what you do are crucial steps forward. Having a support system helps, of course. I didn't talk to anyone about my struggles, even though I have a supportive family and get along well with them. I just didn't want to bother anyone, which isn't a big deal if you can afford a therapist. But the lack of emotional awareness was a big issue. If you don't know you have something to talk about, it's hard to share it in the first place. So yeah, I think that's it. My artwork is basically done. Stay safe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Oh, well, you'll catch me, since it's not like I can actually touch you, or see you, or hear you. But you get what I mean. Anyway, bye.